So hello guys, I am your host Bison. Let's start this legendary game. Okay, so Tal starts the game with d4, knight to f6, c4, and this game is from the round 6 of the 1959 candidate tournaments. Okay, so now we move towards the King's Indian defense. Here black is preparing for the move bishop g7, and after this Tal develops his knight to c3, controlling the d5 and e4 square. Then comes bishop to g7. Here Fischer is preparing to castle, then Tal strikes towards the center by playing e4, preparing for the move e5. And after this, d6 by Fischer, opening the diagonal for the light square bishop. And after this, Tal develops his bishop to e2, and Bobby simply castled. Then comes knight to f3, and this is called orthodox variation. Here, then Fischer strikes towards the center by playing e5, asking for pawn exchange, but Tal simply pushed his deep pawn further. This is called Petrosian variation. Then Fischer develops his another knight to d7, and now Tal pins the knight by playing bishop to g5. Okay, h6 by black, kicking the bishop back, and after bishop to h4, here black made a mistake by playing a6. This move stops the move knight to b5, but here better move for black is just to play g5, kicking this active bishop. Then after this, Tal brings his knight to d2, opening the line for the f2 pawn. Maybe white can play f3, which solidifies the pawn structure. Then Fischer unpins his knight by playing queen to e8. And now Tal castled. King safety is first. Then comes knight to h7. Maybe black can play f5 in future, which opens the f file for the rook. After this, Tal expanded towards the queen side by playing b4. After this, a5 may be possible, and just simply marching all the pawns towards the queen side. Now Fischer moves his knight to g5, making it more active and it can target more squares. But Tal simply solidifies his pawn structure by playing f3. And then comes f5, trying to break the pawn chain, and clearly this knight can't be taken because this will make the black pawn structure more active and dangerous. Hence Tal simply brings back his bishop to f2. Okay, then queen to e7, rook to c1, controlling the c file, but here white can also play c5, trying to break the pawn structure. Knight to f6 by Fischer, opening the diagonal for the light square bishop as well as eyeing on the d5 and e4 pawn. Now Tal simply attacks towards the queen side by playing c5. And simply you can't capture the c pawn, otherwise black will fork the queen and the rook. Hence after this, Fischer develops his bishop on d7 and queen to c2, supporting the e4 pawn, knight to h5, and clearly the next destination will be knight to f4, attacking the bishop. But now Tal makes an error by playing b5. This move weakens the pawn structure, but first Fischer takes on e4, and after knight at d takes e4, then he exchanges the knights. And now better move for black is to capture the b5 pawn, which makes the game close to equal. But he missed that and played knight to f4, which attacks the bishop, but this gives a chance to Tal because he simply pushed his c pawn further, attacking the bishop. Queen to g5 by Fischer, creating the checkmate threat, but this is of no use because simply bishop to f3. And after b takes c6, but here Tal makes a mistake and he lost all of his advantage by playing d takes c6, because now this give a chance to black, and Fischer finds this move bishop to g4, threatening to take the bishop, and after bishop get captured, which is defending the g2 square, then black can create some attack. because this rook is also active, and hence this position will be completely equal. Instead of this, the better move for Tal is not to take on c6. It is to play h4, removing this active queen from the g file. And suppose if black plays knight to h3 check, then simply king to h2, and now queen have to move. If queen to e7, then we take the c6 pawn, and now you can see that white has two advanced pawn as well as there is no attack on the king. Hence this position is completely better for white. But after the move bishop to g4, Tal exchanges the bishop and he played bishop to e3, attacking the knight as well as defending the checkmate threat from the queen. Okay, a takes b5, bishop takes f4, Tal grabbed this knight. Then after e takes d4, he takes on b5, targeting to capture the c7 pawn. Bobby defends it by his rook, and now Tal pins the rook by queen to c4. And here black can simply unpins it by playing king to f8, but in this position Fischer played rook c8. But this is a mistake because now you can see that a file is completely open and Tal can push his a pawn further and promote it, which is supported by the knight as well as the queen. It's better for black to just simply move his king to f8 as well as keeping this rook toward this rank, toward this a rank which stop this pawn. But after this, Tal has some other plans and he plays rook to f3, creating a blockade so that black can't push his f pawn further. Bishop to e5 by Fischer. Clearly black is preparing to move his king forward towards g7. After this, Tal doubled his rook on f1, creating pressure on this f file. King to g7, and Tal pushes his a pawn further, and Fischer tries to stop it by playing rook to a8, but now Tal moves his king to h1, securing the king towards the black queen attack. Okay, queen to g5, removing the queen from any trap in the future. Then Tal played g3, and clearly this pawn can't be taken, otherwise queen will capture this rook. Hence Fischer defends this f4 pawn by playing rook at a goes to f8. Then Tal takes on f4, and here Fischer make a terrible blunder by capturing this f4 pawn, because now Tal finds a beautiful move, knight to d4, which is threatening knight to e6 fork. And after this, black defends his queen. Here black has to defend this queen, otherwise he will lose it. Hence if queen moves, then black has to lose his rook. Here, instead of this move, the better move for black is not to take this pawn, it is to play queen to g4, and this bishop can't be taken, otherwise white will lose his rook. And after queen to g4, suppose if knight to d4, threatening to fork, but then simply black will capture the knight and the game will be completely equal. But after this move, knight to d4, queen to h4 by black, threatening to checkmate, but guys, this is of no use because Tal simply takes the bishop, and after rook takes f4, then he gives a check from the knight, forking this and this, a triple royal fork. And after king to h8, he gives the check from the queen, and after defending it from the rook, then he grabbed this rook. And since this rook is pinned, hence he unpins it by king to h7, but e5, attacking the rook and trying to open the d file. And after takes, final move is queen to d7, and Bobby resigned, because suppose if game continues, then black will play king to g8. Then again white can gives it the check, king to h7, queen takes c7 check, white will chops this another pawn, king to g8, queen to d8 check, and after king to h7, c7. And you can see that white will promote this to a new queen and black will be completely gone. What an amazing game by Tal. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. Hit that subscribe button for more. I am your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.